Hello and welcome back to the Metaverse. For Honor has been going on for the better part of 7 years or so now. Most online games would be dead by this point, but not this one. Not this one. I had this idea though. Today, let's imagine this game was on its last legs, and was in need of a sequel. Oh wait, you don't need to imagine that, it's your reality. No, seriously though, what exactly would For Honor 2 actually look like though? Today I'd like to today I'd like to show some suggestions on some additions I think would be welcomed in the sequel. So let's begin, shall we? Starting out with the simple items, the removal of the current gear system. Anyone who has been on this channel has known that I've made a few videos saying I'm not a fan of the current gear system. I don't like leaving things up to a giant slot machine in the sky to maybe give me a gear piece I want. Quite simply keep some things the same, like make the cooler looking gear be higher to reward playing, but let the people be able to craft whatever gear they want instead of the current gambling like system we have now. Also, I'd like to throw an interesting twist to For Honor 2. This one focuses more on 1v1 fights and treats the team-based fighting modes like Dominion, Breach, and Tribute as more like party modes over anything else. Now I can already tell some of you guys are mad, but to that I say, sucks to suck. I think for pro sports or even just higher level gameplay, it's more fun to see a 1v1 tournament more than Dominion. To me at least, Dominion is more fun to watch casually than competitively. To me this allows balancing to me a bit easier since it's more focused on one side than the other. This way characters don't have to be OD in team games and in duels just to be on the current level of other heroes. Also, I'd heavily rework feats. All weapon feats are removed and are added to the map instead. Feats and perks are now one as well. This allows feats to just be boosts to gameplay instead of auto wins in certain scenarios. Tier 4s will still be powerful of course, but not obnoxiously so. Like it's not just, press one button to turn the floor into fire. To me this allows balancing to be a bit easier since it's more focused on one side than the other. This way characters don't have to be OD in team games and in duels just to be on the current level of other heroes. So if we use someone like Scent for example, feat 1 would be Bounty Hunter, 2 would be Haymaker, 3 would be something like Tough as Nails, and 4 would be something like Slippery. The activatable feats like Fire Flask and stuff should just be around the map's 4 team-based modes instead, but keep them in line with certain maps. Viking maps have flasks, Knights have catapults, Samurai can have those plantable mines from story mode, Wooling get arrow storms, Outlanders can have an amalgamation of all of these since that's more or less what they are.
Finally!
With a new game would also mean we need the main selling part of For Honor, the heroes. There have been a few heroes over the years that I've seen passed around. I remember people thought Jorm would be built like Raider and have the hammer like the Barbarian from God of War 2. But instead we got the beta male version. I'd still love a character like that. Someone who throws their weight around, hitting people with large and heavy weapons that send them flying halfway across the map would be super sick. And although I'm sure it's not realistic, I'd love a barehanded type fighter. Something about just beating people's asses with your bare hands sounds super sick to me. Or a character using the weapons Vega Street Fighter uses. Have him bleed focused. Or even just a character that's parry oriented. Someone that turns defense into offense. These are just ideas I'm spitballing of course. But the fact of the matter is that there's a multitude of historical fighters from across the world that are just waiting to be made. All it takes is Ubisoft to just pull the plug on For Honor 1 already.
I put a whole bag of jelly beans up my ass.
New maps is an absolute must. Do you understand how much I wish we had new maps in the game we have currently? I'd sell my neighbor's kid just to get one new map. You can only play on Citadel Gate so many times before you're begging God to end it all. I'd love to see more dynamic type maps. Stuff like duel and brawl maps on Samurai, Viking and Knight ships. Stuff that at least matches the character we get. Like a Colosseum type map or a map in Egypt for someone like Medjay. I'd love a map that's just on a pirate ship on the seas for a brawl and duel map. Or temples in the mountains. Maybe just a random market town in South America. Hell, just put me in a Walmart. I don't care at this point. And 4 maps for Dominion. You could put maps like an Awulin Palace raid, or some kind of large map by the pyramids. There's plenty of amazing, scenic vistas that could be mapped for this game that it almost makes me wish For Honor 2 was real. Almost. We do not care. I almost forgot. Party games. Things like an infected-like game mode, or even a mode where it's a free-for-all, or the Lawbringer Bombs mode, and you could even bring back returning modes, like the Ice Brawlers one, and the Dance or Carousel of Death one. Just casual modes to play so you don't end up throwing your TV out the window and swanton bombing your console from your roof. Yo! I wouldn't mind a continuation of For Honor 1 story mode. Basically off the very end of story mode 1, you have the three main factions seeking peace between their people, but Apollyon had a backup plan in case she died. She had been training hundreds upon thousands of warriors like her. These would be the warmongers since we know they aren't canonically actually Apollyon. The three factions realize what this means, that they wouldn't just be fighting one mastermind villain, who was capable of warping the entirety of the world, but hundreds of them. The warmongers invade and push back the initial three factions, causing them all to retreat. Maybe you kill off one of each of the faction's characters to raise the stakes, like Conqueror for the Knights, Volk for the Vikings, and the Shugoki for the Samurai. Either way, the three main leaders agree to split up to go across the globe searching for capable fighters to aid them in this endeavor. First they go to the east for the returning Wulin faction. Then after some time they eventually recruit Shiandi and company to join forces, all the while the warmongers convince the returning Outrider faction to join their cause by either bribing them, or forcing them into submission through battle or other corruptive means. Then the Kensei sets out to the west, to the Americas for Cavaliers, Native American tribes and all sorts of other new heroes to see. Basically my idea is that the impending penultimate battle would be on multiple fronts and would slowly push back the enemy into one final gigantic siege on a castle breach style, with all the siege weapons and interesting bits, where the heroes stand victorious, but the end credit scene would be something to leave it open-ended, to keep the story going or something like that. I'm not saying the story has to be a Scorsese masterpiece, but it just needs to be better than this.
So? What did they tell you?
I don't speak Japanese.
Enough about what I'd like to see in For Honor 2. Now we're gonna turn it over to you guys. A while ago I asked what you guys would want most in For Honor 2. Let's take a look at a few of the answers you guys posted, shall we? While I have gone on record saying the charm of For Honor is the fact that it's so simple that anyone can pick it up, I also think it wouldn't hurt for the characters to have a little more depth. I think For Honor should lean more into its fighting game side. Now I'm not saying they need to have Tekken 7 movesets, but I'd love to see them take a much bigger focus to one-on-one combat so it frees them up to do more with more traditional fighting games. Things like hit stun, deeper frame data, recoveries and deeper, and a more nuanced punish game. At present For Honor is kind of moving in the direction I like, where the characters can pressure without end as long as they have the resources available. And for the most part that's how it should be. Keep your opponent oppressed until they counter it, and then they do the same to you. Dual executions would be super cool but would be hard to execute in practice. Like, would someone need to attack at the same time? Or would they just need to be near them like the case with emotes currently? Either way, however it's executed, I think it would be visually amazing. Seeing Centurion throw his sword and uppercut his opponent up into the air, and they fall back on Gladiator's skewer, or Nobushi makes someone bleed, and then 6 shaman on them like a rabid dog. They could even do multiples of the same character executions. Conquerors just bashing the opponent back and forth like a volleyball. Shamans fighting to eat you like rabid hyenas and then eat you like Melina from Mortal Kombat 10. There's so many creative routes to this they could go that they'd have to try their absolute hardest, then consult the elder gods just to make a bad one. I still can't believe they scrapped this. The dialogue For Honor characters had was one of the best ideas to never be used in For Honor. For those who don't know, around season 8ish, there was going to be a change to the way characters worked. They were supposed to talk throughout the fight, like in neutral they'd talk, or after a hit. However, they also changed the way almost all the heroes talked, and they sounded different.
The beast teach.
Centurion! A gladiator!
Behold the law.
Lawbringer!
The characters who had on full helmets having that tin-like audio was definitely a nice touch, but man, so many of the characters sounded so horrible, mostly because most of the original voice actors were not returning to reprise their roles as the characters we all know and love. So eventually I guess they gave up on the project. Bringing this back would be a small detail but an amazing quality of life change to make the game's world feel more lived in, because as we all know, it's the small details that matter the most. I saved this one for last because this one is honestly a bit out there, and I can imagine a world of balancing problems. But I would love for there to be a create a hero feature, where you decide what faction you want to be, pick your weapon of choice, control what they look like under the armor and the armor itself. I understand this would be a major departure from what the original For Honor is like, but I think the fighting system in For Honor is something that if nurtured, can be built upon and turned into something that's truly one of a kind. Well, more so than it already is. I know I spent all this time doing a story mode idea, but hear me out. If they didn't do that, they could also do something close to what the conquest mode for the older NK games were like. After creating your fighter, you could travel the For Honor world, meet all the story mode characters and fight them to earn different story mode exclusive gear sets, and maybe even learn some of their moves. And the hub of For Honor 2 would be something like Street Fighter 6's main hub, where it was a lobby where everyone hung out and could show off each other's drip. You could even get to quick and ranked matches from this hub. The possibilities for this mode are truly tantalizing, and I hope it's possible we get this if we ever got a For Honor 2. But, let's be honest with ourselves here, the odds there will be a For Honor 2 is slim to nothing at this point. But hey, it's at the very least nice to dream about what could be, but I'll never give up hope on For Honor 2, because I'm certain, with all the knowledge that developers have now, that if it were to be made, it'd be thousands of times better than what we got both now and on release. So I'll keep waiting until I either pass on, or just stop caring. But if you enjoyed today's video, then please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel out a ton. Love you guys, and until next time.